You're listening to the Six Figure Designer Podcast, where we ditch the overwhelm, attract better clients, and build a business that fits your life without selling your soul or pretending to be an influencer. I'm Pam Durkin, a 30-year design veteran and creator of the Luxury Client Academy, and I help designers like you stop relying on luck or Instagram to fill your pipeline. Around here, we're all about referral systems, reputation building, and real relationships because you don't need more followers. You need the right people talking about you. Let's build a business you're proud of and make sure it pays you well. Let's get started. So hello, my design friends. Thank you for joining me for an extra special episode of the podcast. Today I have a guest with me. I have Audra, one of my coaching clients. Say hi, Audra.
Hi, everybody.
So great to have you here with me. And the reason that Audra's actually here today is she had such a great win in her business that I wanted to share that with you guys, with the listeners, because I think the events leading up to this win are so very important for everyone to understand that it's not just you. It's not, you're not the only one that is going through some of the things. And I think people are going to be nodding along as we kind of take them on the journey. We take them back of what you went through over the last couple months to lead you to this point. So we're just going to jump right into it. So again, Super. Thanks, Audra, for being here. And I can't wait to see where this conversation takes us. And I appreciate you just lending your experience to those that are listening. So why don't you take us back a couple months? It's probably about 4 months or so. Like, what was going on in your business about 4 months ago? What was happening business-wise, and then also as bringing in business, things like that?
Last year I signed on a few construction projects, construction and renovation at the beginning of the year. And those projects were taking a long time. Like the arc of the timeline was just so long and so wide and so huge and so far that in the fall, I was very much still working on them, like as if they were new projects. And so I was knee deep in changes, revisions, like spec sheets, trying to specify materials. And at the same time, projects were going into construction. And because of the long time arcs, I felt like some of that was getting confusing and difficult. It was a challenge. It was a challenge last year, especially in the fall. And I was feeling a little overwhelmed, and I wasn't feeling great about how all of that was going. Like it just felt heavy. The whole year kind of felt like that. It felt heavy, and it felt like kind of fraught with process problems, slow timelines, permitting issues, like just one thing after another. I don't know that I'll ever have another year like that.
Yes, welcome to the world. And I think also there was a couple other factors that were going on. One was they were intense, meaning there was multiple of those projects happening at once, lots of details going on. You're a small business, so you were managing all that, correct?
Definitely.
Yeah. And then the other thing was, and the reason we're bringing this up is because, life is going to get in the way, and we have to account for that. And I think for you, there was a couple other factors going on. If I'm recalling correctly, like you were out of town for several, almost a month, I think, mid-year last year.
Yeah, Pam knows my whole life. So that's just how it is when you work with Pam, and she remembers your whole life. When you try to think back later and you're like, what went wrong?
Did I do that? What happened?
And right. And you can remember 5 things that went wrong, and she can remember 10 things that went wrong. So yeah, last year, actually, we had a health scare in my family and wound up spending the summer shuffling to accommodate that and try to care for somebody who's very near and dear to us. And everything turned out just fine. But it was just a swirl of like things that were
Yeah, you were
making
out of the
last year.
office for a long time.
I was, yeah. I was
It's
out of the
that
country.
you were out of the country. You
Yeah.
had, you got sick. Your family got sick. Like there was all of that stuff. There was a lot of that going on as well, on top of all this intense work that was happening, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for those listening out there, we talk about this a lot, but we can't plan for the best case scenario in our business, but we have to be planning for a more realistic scenario. And while it's wonderful to think that we can work so many hours on a project and that we're going to get that concentrated time every week, you know, things happen. People get sick, something unexpected happens, a project maybe goes on hold or whatever. So when we're thinking about how to plan for our business, we can't always be planning for the best case scenario because that so rarely happens. So you had all these things going on. So you had multiple projects that were intense because they were construction projects, which are all coming to fruition soon. So it's super exciting. You had the travel, you had the family issues, you had all of that stuff. And then I remember distinctly having this conversation with you not terribly long ago. And you said to me, I need you to be honest with me. Like, am I cut out to do this? Right? Do you want to elaborate a little bit on what you were feeling at that moment when you came to me and you were like, this was really precipitated by the fact that a new project hadn't come into your business that you were excited about. There were some little ones here and there, but
Yeah.
you were wanting this, a bigger and better project, and you had been through a bit of a dry spell for various reasons. So just take me back to that conversation that we had. And you're like, is this thing gonna continue or what's happening here?
I
How are
think
you
every
feeling?
s- I
Yeah.
think every small business owner has this moment, maybe multiple times in their business.
I think you do.
I think that I was very much in a phase of trying to level up my business. Like I was ready to scale up for sure, but I can't say that that's ever like an easy breezy time in your business. It was painful, it's difficult, I mean, it just all around. So last year was so the builders and the clients that I worked with were great. Like it just everything felt so tangled and delayed. Like permitting was getting outsourced to a third party. Like there were so many roadblocks that like were nobody's fault. And I think that I was really swimming, trying to keep people happy. I want people to have the home that they love. And but it was wearing me out. It like very much so.
Right.
And the projects, because I was trying to level up the projects that were coming in, I w have worked with Pam and I know that I have to be a little delusional to jump to the
Yes.
next stage. And so I was actually being very, very strict about what kind of project I onboarded and what I didn't. And I turned away more projects than I ever have last year. So, in addition to it being challenging with the work that I had that was keeping me more than busy, I wasn't taking on any of the new projects that were coming in. And that started to like, so then I started to feel like it was started to feel like it was, and then the market kind of like, I think we all have felt this in some way or another over the last 6 months. The market has gotten really funny in Florida. And so I think that played a part too. So I just was in this tornado of like overly busy on projects, um, family issues, saying no to new projects, which I mean, I was just vicious,
We were
cutthroat.
clapping every time. I was clapping every time you were like, I said no to this. And I'm like, yes. And then after a while, you're like, uh, I'm still
Pam was
saying
cheering, and I was like, is this going to be okay?
I'm still saying no. Is that the right thing?
So, so there was a way in which like I was in very much in the center of a pain point, I think in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And I asked Pam, I was like, listen, like do you think that this is for me? I started to question that, and I think every business owner does that. Do I love what I do? I mean, of course I do, but I think after a whole year of difficulty, I start to think like, is the universe trying to tell me something? I'm listening.
Yeah.
And so I asked Pam, what do you think? What do you think? Is this for me? Like real talk, like
Yeah.
she's always so encouraging and the greatest cheerleader, but she will be very real with you too. And I appreciate that about her. And so I knew if anybody was going to tell me that this wasn't for me, it was going to be Pam.
Yeah.
She didn't say that, but I knew I could
Remember what
count
I
on
said?
her.
Do you remember what I said to you?
Yeah, it was really sweet. You said, I think you're going to be successful. And then you paused and you said, I think you're going to be wildly successful. And
Yes.
that
And I
just
think
like,
I also said one day you are going to look back on this moment and you're going to be in a room full of people and you're going to say, I thought I was going to throw it all in, but I kept going and look what happens.
I'll definitely say that. I think I'll say that probably every couple of years about like,
Yeah.
I just have seen the growing pains of how this goes. Every level
Yeah.
requires a bit of a funnel that you have to get through.
I think you bring up a really good point that, everyone thinks from the outside looking in that, especially in the age of, kind of being able to look at other designers and the work that they're doing so very easily, that it's all easy for everyone else. It's a breeze. The projects just come. They, are able to get these amazing photos and they don't have to worry about any of this. Right. And we all think that everyone else has it so much easier. And if I was just in this magazine, or if I just had this website, or if I just got that project, things would be a lot easier. And I think to your point is we have to be okay and understanding that it's always when you level up and when you change, you're going into uncharted territory. So it always is a little unstable and uncertain and um there's fear and worry with all of that. Like it just happens. And I think you brought up a good point, which you were like, I don't know if this is just the normal cycle. And to be honest with you, I think it is. And we don't talk about that enough. We try to talk about how, you get this one pivotal moment and then it's just a breeze from there. And, that's not necessarily what's happening, is that there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears behind the scenes, a lot of um, thought into what's the next step and all of that. So you had this moment where you're like, seriously, what am I doing here? Like, right? What's like, let's figure out what's going to happen. And, of course I gave you that encouragement. I'm sure you were like, that's really nice. But, when's the rubber going to meet the road here for me? And then um, I think what really happened, and you might want to talk about what the switch was, that you knew. I mean, you knew that you had kind of pulled back on some of the outreach and the networking because of all these other things that were going on, and then the fire came back a little bit. So what was the moment, or what was the thought process when you're like, all right, now I got to get more intentional with that outreach. I got to start reconnecting with people. Tell me how you got that going. I mean, of course, I'm always like, you're going to start outreaching, but what was that? What was
Yeah,
going on with you there?
during the fall when everything felt hard and it had felt hard for a while, I knew that I needed to do my outreach and my marketing. You're never supposed to stop doing sales, but
Never
there
stop
was
marketing.
not there was not one single part of me that wanted to invite more of that
Your
into
life.
my life.
Fair.
I
Yeah.
I was just like, I know that I need to be doing it, but I don't want to be doing any more of this. Like that was really my mindset. I was like, I'm not going to ask for one single thing that feels like this. Like, please deliver me. And
Somebody else.
yeah, and then projects started to look really beautiful as the builds went on and the renovations. And some of them started to close out and we could see the finished work. And there was like, okay, it brought a little joy back. You know, as a creative, I think it's frustrating when you don't have new things to work on, or you don't get to see, you're doing spreadsheets and you don't get to see your work for a long time. That is, I think, a very quiet, subtle, like slog that's going on in the
A
background.
hard process when you're not getting that feedback, right? You're not getting to see
Yeah.
your work come to life because you're in the weeds of the project.
Yeah. And so then I think I started to see some, really beautiful kitchens. I saw some clients' faces just like light up at what we had all completed together, the build team, our team. And it made it, I think some of the reward and satisfaction came back. And I was like, okay, like it brought me back out of that space of like, I'm not sure if this is for me.
Yeah.
And
One of your vendors, I think also one of your vendors, you had an install happen and one of your vendors like called you, or maybe you walked into the site or something and they were just like, this is the most beautiful kitchen I've ever seen. Like they were just
yeah,
gushing with,
yeah, I've
how
had a
beautiful it
few.
was.
I've had a few of those moments were really special to me, and I had a few of them. Um, like vendors, CAD drawing, like support. Um, I even had an electrician call me to do his house after we finished a
Mhm.
house that I worked on, a kitchen and a bathroom. So there also came a flood of feedback, which if I think about it, that's really helpful too. You're like, okay, like I do enjoy this. I am cut out for it. Let me try to recenter my energy. And I would love to say that took 2 days, but that took probably 2 months, 2 to 3 months.
It took a while.
It also happened at the end of the year, and I kind of took some time off. So I traveled in November with my family. We did a road trip down the Pacific Coast Highway. It was a blast, and I'm so glad that we did that. And then over Christmas, we had a blast with family. Like I just
You did
decided
a
to take
cruise too, right? With your mom
I
and your
just
aunt. So you did some
Oh
nice.
yeah, I did a cruise too with my mom and my aunt and my cousin, and like so I think there was definitely a moment that I was feeling I needed to step back. And I think that little step back and then the fresh energy of a new year came together, and it made me feel really hopeful, and I was excited to do more somehow through all of that. And I think that's when it started to hit that, like, okay, first of all, I've made an enormous mistake. I mean, I don't blame myself for it because I think we all heard what last year felt like.
Yeah.
However, I think that there was a big mistake in not continuing to network, continuing to do marketing, continuing to do sales. Like, I think that that was the biggest lesson that came out of that time. It's like you can never stop doing that. You just, like, lunches, dinners, whatever it is, like you've got to have a proactive, intentional plan with that all the time. It's got to be running in the background. And even though Pam was telling me that since the summer of last year, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so I think when this year hit, I was like, Pam was so right. I should have sucked it up and done it anyway, because now I'm ready for work and I've got to crank the whole wheel
Now
again
you
to
need
be
to
honest.
get it. Now you need the
Like
timelines crunched, right? Because you need to get it going now.
now. And that's kind of it's not a bad place to be. I just was doing lots of lunches and phone calls and outreach, but you start to feel like I'm behind now, like I've put myself in a bad position.
But one thing I want to bring up before we get to what happened with this specific project win, I remember you networking differently this time than you did previously. It wasn't just everyone, you were using a lot of discernment. And I distinctly remember getting chills when you called me and said, I met with this this couple was a husband and wife builder. And you were like, I understand now why the quality of who you're networking with makes a huge difference, because they really respected the design process. And it was just I think it was also an energizing meeting. So just briefly talk about what that meeting, like meeting somebody that you felt like, oh my God, they really get it. What that
Yeah,
felt like.
I think I think it wasn't I wouldn't say it's a quality thing because the builders that I'm working with now are so great. But it was like an alignment thing.
Mm.
So and I never knew that it could feel like this. I sat down with a builder here in Tampa, and it was just a husband and wife team, and they are artists at heart. Like one of them has an art background, and the other one has a furniture craftsman background. So these people had like built installations for museums. I don't know if I love art. It's a big element of my business, and I lean into it pretty hard. And just their background was fascinating. We both had lived in New York City. They talked about the way they build, and it's very intentional. Very every like all the craft is really thought about. I'm guessing that their process just feels a little different. It's not a corporate builder. It's not a national builder. It's a mom and pop
Mhm.
store. And we had so much in common. And I left that meeting feeling just really energized about all the possibilities of working with somebody who just sees it so much in the same way that you see it.
Yeah. And it's really exciting. And I think that kicked off a lot of um, what you did in terms of outreach moving forward. You're like, I get it now. I see so much about alignment and how all those things really roll up to great projects. So let's go to, we're going to get into now like the opportunity that came to you very recently and happened so quick, which was awesome. So you, of course, have been, working your network, and this, you have a realtor in your network that's been in your network for since we've known each other, I believe. So it's quite a while. And just tell us a little bit about the realtor meeting, like how long have you known them? If you had ever gotten any referrals from them before, just give everybody like a little bit of background about this particular realtor that ended up referring you to a project.
I decided to start a little mastermind group locally, and it was just for a handful of women. And it was designed to be kind of mastermindy, but also like a safe space to land. We were all mothers, so it was nice to go have a dinner or a lunch and be able to talk about, some very real things. We were all business owners, and so that group was created very intentionally to help. We're all in the home industry, so we can refer each other business. We can talk about challenge. So it's like it was a very dynamic setting, and that I thought let's try it,
Yeah.
and that's how I met that realtor through that. She was invited through a friend of mine, and there were only four of us, but she at the time was um her bread and butter was selling homes that were like 6 to 800,000, and she was just crushing it. I mean, super, super successful,
Mhm.
smart as a whip. Has a big brokerage, a lot of agents under her, and but I feel like since the mastermind started, she's started to jump into like multi-million dollar sales. I don't know her whole history, so maybe she was always doing
Yeah.
that. But just all of a sudden, I'm seeing like online, like castles and mansions that she's selling. And I kept thinking like, oh, I would love to work on one of those. And
And you were working that too, because I remember going through her brokerage site and being like, she does have some listings that they were a handful, but how many do we need? Like, right? We were just like, there are a handful that are well over $1 million. But nothing was just really getting referred at the time, right?
yeah, I had mentioned it to her a couple times. I think some of it was just me being clear with the kind of client that I'm looking for, like
Mm.
what
Oh,
I,
there's
the idea.
say that again. That's really important. Being clear with what you're looking for.
Well, it's hard to when you just assume your friends know what you do, you know?
Yes.
So I think that being able to put words around the kind of client that I wanted, which honestly, I had to be tweaked and drafted again. That wasn't something that I had been sitting on. I had just never said. It also had to be generated based on the evolution of my business. And so I think being able to put that to words, I asked this friend in December, we were at a party and we were kind of talking about her last big sale. And I kind of softly mentioned a designer, and she's like, yeah, but I just don't know that it clicked. And then later on, Pam's like, well, Pam explained, like, why don't you tell what you don't want her thinking that what she's selling is not a good fit for you. She's like, you've got to tell her, you got to explain to her what you're looking for so that she knows what she has is actually a great fit. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Mm.
So I wound up following up with her and I was like, this is the kind of client, this is the kind of house, this is the price point, um and that didn't lead to anything immediately, but I felt like there was some really great clarity around that, especially
What
for
you were
a
looking
realtor who
for.
sees
Yes.
so much traffic.
Right. So great. I mean, I think it just bears repeating that as you guys in the audience are looking to network with people, be able to verbalize exactly what you're looking for. And we were like, we're looking for homes in this price point, with, families, mostly entrepreneurs, that kind of thing. Like, I think that you really got a little bit more in detail with what you were looking for. That just gave them a starting point to be able to recognize when they had an opportunity that sort of fit that profile, that this was a great fit. So then you got a referral from this person. What was it? Was it only a week or two ago? A couple weeks ago, right? 2 or 3 weeks ago, you got a referral, right? You got a call from this realtor that said what?
I got a text on a
Text. Okay, you
Saturday.
got a text.
I got a text on a Saturday. I was laying in bed. I had a sinus infection and my phone dinged and it was a link to a house.
Mhm.
And the message said, look at this property and then call me.
There's a lot of detail there, but go ahead. So you did that, right? And
Yeah, and a few exclamation points. And I was like immediately started losing my mind immediately. And I called my husband and I was like, do you see this? I was showing him on the phone.
yeah.
I mean, the home, it's so beautiful. It is stunning. And I love everything about this house. And so when I opened it and looked at it, it just felt like so incredibly aligned. I was like, I want it. I want this. So, and I called her and she was, they're friends of hers. She knows them well. So I started taking notes while she was telling me about what they do, who they are, their kids. I mean, she was excited to share.
Yep.
And she did a really nice job teeing me up to them as well. So,
And that made a huge difference, by the way, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it did. And
I don't think they were talking to anyone else.
I didn't get the sense that I didn't get the sense that they were. I did get the sense that they might have talked to somebody previously, and that's why they were asking for around for a designer. But I think they were just looking for somebody that they could trust, and that was going to be a good collaborator.
Yeah. So she says to you, I've passed your name along. These people are going to call you right away because I know who they are and I know everything about them and blah, blah, blah. They're very fast movers, whatever. And then came the wait on your end. And I remember distinctly talking to you about this. You were like, they were supposed to call me right away and I haven't heard anything. And then it went into, well, maybe they looked at my website and maybe they don't think I'm good enough. And maybe I haven't done big enough projects. And maybe they looked at this. And it kind of went like we went to a place, right? And I don't blame you for that, but I'm just recounting that part of the story because we all tend to go, oh, well, there must be something wrong because I didn't hear from them in the time frame that somebody else told me I would hear from them, right? So just why don't you speak to that briefly about what was going on in your mind when you didn't hear from them? Even I think it might have been like 5 days, right? Or something like that. You thought they were going to hear from them like within a day and it was a week or something.
Yeah, Pam, I don't remember it like that at all because who would be so crazy to think such illogical things?
Did you remember I was like, calm down? I
No,
thought you were
because
like,
I
oh
would
my God.
never, I
I'm like,
would,
Audra, how do you
no
not see these
designer,
things?
no designer would ever worry about the things that you just mentioned.
No, I know.
Yeah, I kind of lost it. And I was like, they don't like me. We're not, it was like
I
the
gotta
guy that
change
you
my
went on,
whole website.
the
Let's
guy, it
do
was like
that
the
right
guy that
now.
you went on a date with and you were like really excited and
Yeah,
but he didn't text you right away or he didn't
yeah.
follow up and you're like, oh, he doesn't like me.
It's all horrible. Something horrible's happening. Yeah, it's all me. There's a problem with me, right? That was the
Sure. I mean, that's what I think that's
yeah,
so common as a business owner, you're just so aware of everything. But like the world outside is just rolling on outside of your head.
yeah.
And so it took them 2 weeks to reach out. And then I got a message that they wanted to meet. And I was so excited.
Yes. And then what we did, then we got to work, right? So you and I talked, and this is one of the things that you get in the Luxury Client Academy is you're getting this kind of support. Like Audra's calling me saying, I got this opportunity. I'm going to get on a discovery call with them on whatever day it was. She's like, I need to talk through how to structure this call so that, I make the most of the opportunity and I find out what I need. Now, you and I have already, talked about what your discovery call, like the how it should roll, but we kind of like fine tuned it for this opportunity because, by the way, biggest one you've ever been invited to be a part of.
Yeah, there was because I had talked to them on the discovery call and because I had information from my friend, there were a few specific things that I had questions about that I just wanted to
Mhm.
make sure that I got the information that I needed or was able to talk through. There were a few like specific points because I had more information going into this one. So we talked through that and um
What
then
did
we
you
had
ask on that call that you felt really gave you insight into what they were going to be like to work with?
I mean, if I'm honest about that, my favorite thing was like I don't usually ask this
Uh-huh.
in my discovery calls, but I felt like I should and I said, "What are you most worried about? Like what is keeping you up? What are you worried is not going to go right?" Um and everybody has an answer to that, right? Like they were just like, "We're good. We're not worried at all. Like this
But
is
I
going to
think
be
that
amazing."
yeah, I think what they said, which was really telling, and you probably picked up on this instinctually, is not that they were like, we're not worried about anything, but she kind of implied, we feel like we're going to be in good hands with you, so we don't need to worry about it.
Sure, that's a much nicer way to interpret it.
Yeah.
I loved the positivity of that answer. Like it
Yeah.
was really very sweet and I think immediately made me really start to like them.
Yes, and they used a lot of they had good because we got to debrief about that call, which we did because you recorded it with their permission. And, I always suggest that if you can record your discovery calls because it will help you be able to go back, especially if you're like, I don't know if you were nervous, but if someone's nervous on a discovery call, a lot of times you'll miss stuff that you can see, like you can hear when you go back and listen to it. But it was the way they interacted with each other. It
Mhm.
was the way that the language they used about just being very confident in having someone by their side that was a professional. Um, they were just really excited about trying details and making this home their own with your help. There was a lot of collaborative conversation happening in that call. And one thing that I think you did really well is you ended the call with like, okay, here's what happens now. Like, here's the next step. And then you went ahead and set up that beautiful on-site meeting and actually did some really interesting things um, for that meeting or prior to that meeting. So why don't you just tell the audience what you did there because I thought that was really impactful as well. You sent them something or you brought something?
I did both. I sent a box ahead of time with all my materials, like my contract and how I work and my process.
Oh, the
Um,
shock and awe box. Yeah, girl. Love
yeah,
it. So when you say contract, this is just to clarify, this is a blank contract so that they just get um kind of understanding what's coming to them, right?
yeah, they have a chance to read through it if they have,
Yep.
some people want to read to the letter of the law. And so I always want to give them time to do that if that's their personality. Some people just scroll to the end and sign. But I find that helps. And when we get to the consultation, we just say, well, what questions did you have? And that allows us to hit at a high level the pieces that they're interested in or have questions about. Um, and then for this project, I also decided to do something. So they're not living in this house. And so it's empty. And I thought, what might be nice, and it's a lot of space, and we had to walk around. So I printed out what I called a project brief, and it just had our agenda for the day, a high level, like executive summary of the scope that we had talked about on the phone, and my process, just a one pager of like, we're going to start here, then move to this. It's kind of phased out.
Right.
And then the last couple of pages were just open pages for notes for them to use as they walked through the project. So it's very simple, but I did go to get it bound and printed on cardstock with a cover and a backing. And I just like that. I want people to know how much thought I put into each step of this, and I like being prepared.
Yeah, and this I think is all part of, one of the things that we teach is this shock and awe box where you get to sort of immerse people in your process ahead of time and get that feedback from them. So that's an incredible technique that anyone can use in their business. And then, showing somebody how they're going to be treated before you get hired, and that's exactly what you did. You just said, I really want this project, but you weren't saying that, but you were showing them that you were really putting thought and time and effort into that. And that just really, I'm sure, gave them such a comfort level. So let's talk about, so you walk through the project. Of course, it's as incredible as it looked in pictures. You got a lot of you had a great time with that potential client. You created a lot of rapport. And then let's talk about, you were going to put together a design proposal for them. And then you and I got back on the phone again, right? To talk through that process.
Yeah. So when I walked the house with them, there were so many things that, like, you have to understand how badly I wanted to do this project. The couple is delightful. They are so sweet, so down to earth. And what they're really hoping to create here is a home for their family. They have a young son, and then some older children as well. But I have young children, so I just understand like what they're looking for. I felt like I could see it. And um, I also loved the bones of the home, the architecture of the home, the style of the home. There were so many things for me that I was like, yes, yes, yes. Like
Green
this,
flag, green flag, green flag, as I say, they were
yeah. And that doesn't always happen, right? But this was definitely it. And so I came back and I had a lot of notes. There's a lot of scope,
Mhm,
and there's some renovation, and there's furnishings.
mhm.
Uh, and so I had a thought about, so in this proposal specifically, I mean, you write millions of proposals, right? But this one I needed to think specifically about the sequencing because we are engaging a builder and there is an element where they're ready to work, like they're ready to get demo set up on the house in the areas that are going to be renovated. So I want to keep the builder happy and I want to keep the timeline on schedule. So my first thought was like sequencing. I need to do this in a way that prioritizes the work that needs to get done in order for them to move in.
Mhm.
Then we need to move to the soft furnishings and all of that jazz. But, and meanwhile, we need to start with like a cohesive, like overview of what there's so many things and my brain is just busy with thinking about honestly the sequence of everything and how to make that look, how to make it flow. And so I think that that was a big part. And then also, there were like several elements in this home, like that they were gonna, like there's an apartment
Uh-huh.
that's above the house for like a nanny, live-in nanny. And then there is a separate garage. There's a garage we're turning into a gym. There's a new pavilion that's going out back. So there's a lot of change happening to what's already there. And so my mind got very busy going to work thinking about that. And so I went to Pam and I was like, okay, this is what we've got. This is what I'm thinking. Help me like merge all these thoughts into a thoughtful proposal.
Right. And so we got on the phone, right? And we literally reorganized the thought process on the proposal, put numbers to each of the areas. I think there was a concern on your part where some of the, like you mentioned, some of the rooms were full scope design, some of the rooms were getting touched from a standpoint of construction, but then other rooms were just getting a cosmetic change. And you were like, I don't know how to approach the differences in each of these rooms, right?
Yeah, there was a blend. Like some rooms were just getting a couch, some were getting paint, some were getting wallpaper, some were getting
All of it.
knocked down. So there was a lot, yeah, within the sequence. There was also the micro, thinking about the micro elements of what is needed across all the rooms. It was a lot of information to try to condense
Yeah.
in a way that a client could understand it and I could feel good about the path. Like I think a proposal is for the client, but also it's the first place where you sit down and start to think about how's this going to work? What's the schedule? What's the sequence? How are we approaching this?
So tell me how did I help you kind of cull through all of those ideas so that we could come to a number for that proposal?
I think you helped me break it down into thoughts like, or into buckets. Like instead of my mind was wanting to go to, okay, what are all the bathrooms that we're renovating?
Uh-huh.
What are all the bathrooms that are getting like a light aesthetic change?
Uh-huh.
What are bathrooms that are going to be mostly gutted, but we're keeping the floor? There's really just probably 3 or 4 different tiers of changes in the bathrooms alone. And so my mind went to the horizontal of that.
Mm-hmm.
And Pam helped me break it to start with just like, no, let's just this bathroom, one bathroom. What do we need to do in here? And how long do we think it's going to take? And so instead of the horizontal pull where we were thinking about all the bathrooms at once, we were thinking about it room by room.
Yeah. Yeah. So we went through and put numbers to each of those and kind of worked through all of those numbers. And how did you feel after you and I got on the phone and worked through that call? I think you were so funny. You were like, I'm just going to send it. I'm going to send it. Right.
And total send energy.
You were
Total
like,
send energy.
I loved it. It was so, I want to give people some context. What is the biggest design fee that you've ever priced out prior to this project?
Probably like 26,000.
Okay. And this was significantly higher than that. So
This was my very first 6-figure design fee.
yes, girl. I have
That
to
feeling.
This is so exciting. So let's just say you have more than 5.5 times your previous design fee, right?
It was.
How
It's
did
a big
that, like,
jump.
how did you feel about that? Let me ask you, I didn't feel, honestly, after our call, going through, working on the numbers, figuring out how to structure it, I didn't feel that you were at all concerned. Were you concerned? You didn't show it.
No,
You were just like, and I'll put it in and hit send, right?
total send energy. Like, I don't know what this project just felt right. And I was excited to send it. And any designer can appreciate this. Some proposals you draft and you're like, I'm gonna send it tomorrow, or like,
Yeah, you're like, "Meh."
I need to think about it. Like there's some part of it that's like, you're like, but what about the customization of that bookshop? Like you're just kind of like still going back and forth thinking about like how much time it's going to take. You need to play it out in your mind, and so sometimes I let my proposals sit overnight, but this one I felt great about. I felt like we nailed it. I felt like the scope was clear. There was a lot of clarity. I was like, this is perfect. It's lined up in a way that it's easy to understand. Everything is priced out the way it should be. We are ready to go.
Yeah, and do you think that just having you and I work through that proposal and, what I call the Ben Franklin, like talk about it a couple different ways and context it, that you felt really confident, having that person to bounce off all of these things and help you craft this proposal really gave you that confidence to put forth this number that you had never done before.
Yeah, I think that it is makes all the difference. It makes all the difference because otherwise it's me bouncing it off my husband who
Yeah, they're
who
like, what? You can't do that.
who's
You
a
can't send that
PhD,
number.
who's a PhD in a different field
Yeah.
and
He's
like
like,
he
what?
does not know. And so if you ever want to stop making your husband a business partner in your business
Yeah.
and
Call Pam.
get somebody real to bounce your ideas off, come talk to Pam.
Yeah.
If you need to fire your husband
Yeah.
and, and replace
By
him,
the
come
way,
talk
he
to
probably
Pam.
doesn't want to be part of that anyway. So, there's that too. So
But
then
I think that it's total clear. It was total clarity. Like, and
confidence and clarity, like you knew that this was a good number. You knew that you could
yeah,
justify that number if they came back with questions.
yes, of
Felt
course. Yeah.
very confident in that number, that you were getting fairly compensated and that you were going to be able to do and perform and give them the service that they were indicating they wanted.
Yeah. Beyond that, I was just super excited about that.
Yeah.
Like the scope excites me. I don't know how it's such a cool project. And like maybe that's why so you gave me confidence and clarity and I already had the excitement and I was just like, let's roll.
Let's do it. And then you get how did they respond to your, what was the call or the email or however they responded to you to say, what did they say? Which was the best words we ever want to hear from somebody.
Yeah, it was really nice. So I sent the proposal and I look for a time to get on a video call after I send a proposal so that we can walk through any questions.
Yeah, we did strategically set that up. So you said to me, how should we present this proposal? I just spent 4 hours with them or whatever it was, some like significant amount of time.
Mhm.
And I was like, why don't you email it, but then immediately set up a video call with them. I think it was
Yeah,
a video.
they weren't available for a couple of days, so I sent it. Um, and they sent an email and they said, "Hey, like, thank you so much for all the thoughtful work that you put into creating this for
Green
us."
flag, green flag, green flag.
And it was just so nice. Again,
Yeah,
like
yeah. Who does that? That's awesome. We
it
need
was so nice. And it's just like and he is a business owner as well. So I think he was like, I know what this takes. It felt very much like a warm hug of an email. I know how much this takes to put together. I appreciate the thought you put into it. I'd love to, like, we are happy to set up a call. Are you available on Friday at 9? And I was like, yeah, like, great. And I scheduled it and we got on the call and I didn't know what their questions would be, but I assumed that because they set up a call, they had questions.
right.
Um, right? Like if you're fine, you just sign and you move on. So I was curious to see what they didn't like might have been unclear or we needed to elaborate on. And so I opened the call just kind of explaining the thought process behind the proposal, how I created the scope and how I went about thinking about the approach, because I think that that's important. And they had totally appreciated that. They were like, yeah, like
You're
it's
giving
there,
us
we see
exactly
it.
what we want. Yep.
Yes, yes. And I was like, I think my instinct for me, I drafted this proposal based on like my instinct and what you're telling me about who you are and what you want to do. And so I crafted this in a way where it's very turnkey and you're hands off throughout this process. He's like, that's absolutely what we want.
Right.
And so I think there was just a lot of alignment in how I interpreted like what they were looking for. And I built the proposal for that, like for them, which is
Yeah.
what we're always doing, right? But
Right.
you have to be thoughtful about what somebody's looking for, right? And so I think we nailed it in terms of the approach. And their questions were you know, I saw this thing about project minimums and the contract, but I don't really understand that. Could you explain it? I explained it. And he's like, oh, makes perfect sense. They wanted to talk about incorporating some art they have something cool that's signed from Elton John. And again, I mean, I was like, oh, well, let's
No
see it.
problem. No problem.
Woo! And so it was just kind of some specifics about
Like
um,
details, more like
it was
refinement.
the details. Like their mind was already starting the project. It wasn't really a contract call.
Yeah. So
I
then
mean,
you got, when
like
did you get
Hartsburg.
when did you get the nod that, we're sending money? Was that on
Well,
that
he's
call or afterwards?
um well, we ended that call and I said they had added a little bit of scope while we were on the call, like one bathroom. And I said, okay, I'm gonna update the proposal to reflect that additional scope.
Right.
I'm gonna I'm gonna tweak one thing in the contract so that it's easier to understand for, or it's more clear. And I said I'll send it over within the hour because I had blocked off an hour after our call to make any tweaks to the revision that I needed to make. And so I was ready to send it. I sent it. And then I actually had to run directly to a lunch. So I'm glad I had that moment to get that together. So they had the contract. And then, I mean, everything seemed like it was a go, but nothing is a go until it's, the
That's what I tell
contract is
people. Yeah.
signed.
Wait till we get the money and the signed contracts.
And so they did both of those things that night. Like I know that and so like they closed out their day on a Friday, probably got their kid to bed and then went to the computer together and signed it and sent the fee.
Yeah. So this is a six-figure design fee. It's well over six figures. And um, what does a project like this mean for your business?
Well,
How does this make you feel?
as I keep telling my husband, I hope that I hope that there's a moment here where it's a tipping point and I'm working with the people like this
Mhm.
in houses like this. Like there's so many parts of this project that are dreamy. And I think, what if, like, I keep thinking to myself, like, what if this is just who I am now? Like, this is the designer that I am. This is the kind of project that I book. Like, this house has so much character. There's arches and domes, and it's so cool. I mean, I couldn't have called it, like, the universe could not have sent me a better situation. And so I just thought, like, what if this is it now? Like, what if this is my new life and this is what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And my husband likes to just be like, yeah, I mean, that would be amazing, Audra. But I'm calling it in
I
because
love it. But how does this now, getting this project, make you approach what you do in your business now in general? Does it change how you feel about you
I
as a
think
designer, your business, your confidence?
I think it validates how I have been feeling.
Yeah.
I have been holding out for this kind of project. I've been saying no, which was painful. I have been like sharpening my sword for this moment. I have been planning for this moment. It's been a goal of mine. I don't want to grow an empire of the firm. I mean, nobody's asking me to, so that's great. But I just want to stay just me. I just want to be independent, a solopreneur. And so for me, my goal has always been to have maybe 4 amazing projects a year,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want a high volume. I just want great projects with great people, and then I want to be free enough to take off in the summer for a little while and go stay in a different country. Like that's just always been my goal, and getting here shows me that that's totally possible. Like that dream of mine
Is reachable.
is
The
so
reality.
much closer
Yeah.
now than it was before.
Yeah. And then what could you say, just looking back on this experience, like what do you think the role of having a coach help you through this process What do you think that did for this in this particular situation? How did that help?
I mean, I think having a coach is really important because if you are doing it by yourself, there's just too much. It feels like a disservice in a way because you're not, you don't have somebody to crunch it with. You don't have somebody to think through it with. You don't have somebody. I mean, that was very much a working call. Like, okay, well, what if we, what if,
You mean putting that proposal together?
yeah, like the
You and
process
I worked on that.
of putting it together was like a working call. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like if you were in corporate, it would be you calling somebody from your team or sitting with your manager and drafting out a scope of work in a meeting. It would have been around a conference room table. It's just in the world of solopreneurship, you don't have that benefit. You're going to lose some of, I think, the clarity and the confidence that you get from collaboration at a high level if you don't have a coach.
Yeah. And was there anything that I said to you along the way that you were like, okay, this is good to have Pam by my side telling me these things so that I can send out this six-figure proposal so that I can keep getting these types of projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think that question is hard because you were there with me all along the way. Like we talked about the discovery call, then we talked, and then you helped me with that discovery call on the back end as well. Then we went into the I debriefed the consultation with you, then we built the scope. And so you were kind of in my back pocket all along the way. And the reason that that's important is because there's not a final moment at the end where it's like, aha, it's like we were refining and clarifying all along the way.
To the puzzle, right?
Right. Because if you haven't asked the right questions, or if you haven't given the right information, or if you haven't, it's a delicate balance when somebody wants to trust you to be in their home. And so it's real how you approach it. You need to build that trust and that rapport. It's really important. It's important for them. And so I think that with that collaboration with you early on in this process, I was able to like get the nuggets that we needed, get the information, understand how they want to live, understand all the elements of everything. This is a complex project too, because of there's some renovation, there's some additions, there's some changing, like a garage is turning into a gym. There's a lot going on. And so I think that my mind starts to feel it can start to feel overwhelmed with the amount of detail.
Yep.
So somebody coming at it high level and kind of pulling you out. I mean, it's just the balance of energies with the coach. Like, hey, don't worry. Hey, let's come up here and look at it from the 3,000-foot view. Like it just helps pull you along through to the end, which is what we did together.
Yeah. And the other thing I think is that, at any point, so I always say that qualifying a client is a multi-step process, and you're seeing that because it's like it's time on the phone with them, it's interactions with them, it's on site with them, it's the going through the proposal. Like all of that's a qualifying process. Many times we don't think of it that way, but that is part of it. And you can kind of fumble the ball at any time during that process. So I think it was really helpful to have you be able to call me at each step in the process. So you almost didn't get overwhelmed with the whole thing, but it's like today we're doing the discovery call. Let's get through the discovery call, right? And then tomorrow, and then we know then we're going to, what's the next step after that, right? Chunking that out.
This is how I talk to my clients. I'm like, we only need to worry about this right now.
Yeah.
Right. But like, because all of our brains get excited and they start to go
Right.
all the way to the end. It's just, I think, a feature of like human nature. But the same way I show leadership for my clients and I say, hey, we're just right here today. This is all we have to think about. It's relieving for them and it shows leadership. And I think Pam and the LCA do the same thing for me because my mind can also be a runaway train. It's like, we're just here right now.
Yeah, let's just look at this part and then we will handle the next part. Let's let the domino fall here. And then when that domino falls, we can talk about, I think that kept the nerves down and it also helped you keep that confident of, like you said, we're just sending this proposal off and making it go. So I do want to say that this house is over $4 million, so it's your biggest project to date, which is super exciting. I'm so proud of you. I swear when you called me with the good news, I had chills and I was just so excited for you and happy for you. So I can't wait to see where this takes you and your business, because I know I'm going to hear all about it and we're going to definitely be working on the nuances of what to do moving forward in this project. Um, I just want to say, like, I want to ask you, what would you say in hindsight now to like maybe other designers who are feeling stuck or discouraged about what's going on in their business, or feel like they're trying stuff and nothing's working, or maybe don't have they're kind of like where you were, where you're just like, I'm burnt out and I'm overwhelmed. Do you have any advice now that you've kind of gone through this experience?
Mm. That's like, yeah, I think we all have been there and we will all continue to be there. So to just try to say something like, oh, you'll get through it it's just doesn't, it's not helpful. I wish I could say something really helpful because it's painful. I think I could just maybe speak to the best thing I think I did for myself was I shifted my geography. I shifted my pace. I said, let's go on vacations. Let's get out of town. And I think that I needed to pull myself out of the energy at my desk. And if you leave me at my desk, I will just keep going. There's plenty of work to do. We know there is, we've all got that parking lot document of a million things that we want to do. But I think there's a way that you can spiral in your energy and your negative, like the negative space. And so I think that's probably the best thing that I did for myself is to give myself permission to shut it down, turn it off, and find a way to recharge.
Yeah, and I think the first question you asked me after you got this job was, do I need to keep networking? And I was like, absolutely. We do not stop. And you know why I said that is because even though you got this incredible project, is because, again, like we talked about in the beginning, who knows? I can't wait to see this project come to fruition, but things can happen, right? Projects can go on delay, they can go on hold, something could happen. And so we need to keep moving forward. Now you have some breathing room, which is great, that you can, not feel so pressured to do what you were doing before, which was like spending most of your time on this marketing and outreach. But it's like we're always be marketing, right? ABM, always be marketing no matter what, even with these big projects. So I want to thank you so much for being here and kind of talking about this process. I think it's really helpful for others to see a little behind the scenes and behind the curtain of what happens when an opportunity comes your way that's probably your biggest ever, and how I helped you get through some of each step of the phase and also not just get too far ahead of it and be able to give you that confidence and clarity. I just want to let people know that if you're interested in the Luxury Client Academy and wondering what it's like to work with me, those applications are now open. You can always reach out to me. We can set up a clarity call. So I would love to hear about your business. But thank you so much, Audra, for just being here and helping people get a sense of, what it's like to really run a business in this world today. And congratulations on an incredible project. I know we're all can't wait to see what this looks like.
Thank you, Pam.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.